So in this video, we are going to talk about subclassing. So subclassing is basically just the implementation of inheritance, which is used in mostly object-oriented programming languages like Java, C Sharp. They all have their core concept of inheritance, which means like passing the information down. Subclassing is like inheritance, which means like passing the information down. So let's say you have an iPhone 7, you have built the iPhone 7, and now you want to make iPhone 8. So you won't make iPhone 8 from scratch, like from totally the beginning. So what would you do is like some of the features from like iPhone 7, add some new features to it, and change some features of iPhone 7 and make iPhone 8 instead of like making it from scratch, if that makes sense. So this is the like concept of inheritance or subclassing. We're gonna like see under the hood implementation of this, and we're gonna understand how it works. And in our application we are gonna take example of the quiz. So let's say we have users, because we are building a quiz application, we have users, and we might have like a general users. So every user like who signs up and logins to our website, who have some functions. But then we have a paid user as well. Like paid user, he would have like additional functionality that would be attached to him. Okay, so the paid user would have the functionality that the general user would have, but he has that additional functionality that the general user don't have, if that makes sense. And we're gonna see that how it works in a moment. So let's go straight into it. So let's create a function user creator. First I'm creating a general user. We already saw this how it works. First I'm gonna like create a general user. It has two parameters, name and score. I'm gonna create a new user object, which is gonna be the link to the user object functions, which I didn't create it now. I will create in a moment. User functions, and then I'm gonna whatever is passed to as an argument to this parameter, I'm gonna take it into this object which I created. New user as a property of name user dot name is equal to name, and new user dot score to be score. And then I'm gonna return out our new user which got created from this function. I'm gonna create this user function, which is where we are proto linking to our functions, which is an object. I'm gonna create the user functions. So this is basically the proto linking to this user functions objects. Okay, so if we try to access a function which is not present in the like function user creator, it would because I proto linked it to user functions, it would look up over here and try to see over here. If that function is here, he would access it from here. So let's say we have two functions, say name, this is a function, and this function is just console logging. I am whatever the name is passed, this dot name. I already told you what this does is this refers to the current object. Whatever is the current name, it would print that. And next is our login function, which is gonna be saying that you are logged in. And then I'm gonna create an instance of this user function, user creator function object combo. Okay, I'm gonna create user one, which is gonna be like general user. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the arguments to these parameters, user creator, and the parameters would be Zaid and the 4 is score. And let's try to access user one dot c name. So let's see, it would print that, it would print I am Zaid, but let's see how it's working. So I created an instance of this. Okay, so I passed two arguments to this. Name is that, 4 is the score. Then I created an empty user, new user. So this is like, it doesn't know, it doesn't have any value. It is like created dynamically at runtime each time this function is called. Like if I pass the another like value user2 and something else, so it's gonna be created again and it's gonna take that dynamically those values. And so new user is equal to object.create user functions, and so it's protoling to that new user.name, whatever is passed to name. Zaid is Zaid and the score is score, and it's adding name user.name to Zaid, like which is argument to this Zaid over here, to is a property to new user property, which is an object that I created dynamically. And it's the score I passed in on the right side, 4, is assigned to the new user object property, and we are returning that, and we're protoling to these functions. And then we have two functions. So we will try to access user1.cname. So we will go to user creator. We will see that there is no cname over here. So what would be your answer? It's gonna like print out the cname or not? So when it doesn't find it over here, so what it would do is, like, we know that its proto is reference to proto reference link to this object, which are defined over here, cname and login. Okay, so it would now go to its proto link and see that these user functions are created in its object bit of that. Okay, and it would find cname over here and print that. So let me show you how it's working. Let's say I'm gonna print out user1. So this is an object user1. I'm gonna expand it. So these are like prototype object. So we linked it to prototype object, which has two functions, cname and login, where it would find its login and cname and print that. That makes sense. So let's move. So this is like the functionality for the general user, but we want now the paid user, which would have some additional functionality. So let's say he would have additional functionality of account balance. He would have some balance in that. So I'm going to create a new function called const paid user creator. Okay, I'm going to pass in paid name. I'm going to pass in paid score. Okay, perfect. Paid score, paid name, paid score, and it would have an additional thing, which is gonna be the account balance. Okay, and I'm gonna expand it. So instead of doing the thing which is used to like create the name and score for this paid user creator, again writing the whole stuff like this, which we define from 78 line to 81 line, create a new object and take those properties into this, and then returning out that, what we're gonna do is call this function user creator. Okay, we're gonna grab those values from we're gonna use the user creator, and we're gonna create our paid name and paid score from that function, and we are gonna deal account balance differently from this function, which is paid user creator, if that makes sense. So let's say let paid user, I'm gonna create an empty object which is paid user. I'm gonna call the user creator. I'm gonna pass in paid name and paid score. Okay, paid score, and you see I call this function. The right hand side would execute. It would go to here, and it would like create this object, return out the new object. So whatever is created, it would assign that to paid user object. Is that okay? If that's okay, we can now move on to the next line. So we are gonna say that. And one more thing is, when I call this user creator, okay, when I call this user creator, its proto is linked to these user functions. We want is proto link, we want is proto link to these functions as well, but we want is proto link to the paid user functions first. So we're gonna say there's a method called set prototype of, which is in object, which I'm gonna use to set the proto link manually. Okay, which is used to set the proto, which is used to link the proto link manually. So I'm gonna pass in paid user, and I'm gonna, so what I'm doing is linking is proto reference to paid user function, which I haven't defined till yet. I'm going to define it in a moment. Paid user function. So I'm manually linking its proto to the paid user function. So let's create the const paid user functions. These are over here. We will see that it would do what is. Just for now, understand this. I linked paid user proto link to these paid user functions and is not linked to these, and I override this. Okay, next I'm gonna do is one more thing is we have account balance. So I'm gonna say paid user dot account balance to be whatever the account balance is passed in. So let's call our function paid user function. Before calling this function, I'm gonna add some functionality in the paid user functions, which is gonna be like increasing the account balance. Okay, so I'm gonna increase the balance, which is gonna be a function. Okay, and I'm gonna say that this dot account balance to be plus plus, so it would increase this account balance to be 1 whenever this function is called. Okay, and one more thing is, now is proto link is only referred to this, but we want the paid user to have access to this functionality, but the paid user should have functionality of these one as well. Does that make sense? He should have the general functionality as well. He should not only have the paid functionality, but he should have the general functionality as well. But we linked its proto to paid user functions, paid user to paid user function. So what we're gonna do is object dot set prototype of these paid user functions to the general user functions. Okay, so the first argument would be paid user functions, and the second argument would be user functions to user functions. So now if the function is not here, so its proto link is referred to these user function. So if it doesn't find a function that is not defined over here, it is gonna look up over here. Okay, next line we're gonna call the paid user, we're gonna create an instance of paid user creator and see, let's see what happens. Let's create another function, paid user one. So an instance of the paid user creator, which is gonna be object dot set prototype of, which is gonna be paid user creator. I'm gonna pass in, for this our paid user is gonna be Viviana, and the score is gonna be 8, and the account balance is gonna be 25. Okay, and let's try to access the page user increase balance. On this page user 1 dot increase balance, we're gonna call the increase balance. Okay, and then I'm gonna, so now its score should be increased to 26, and we're gonna check if it's increased or not. Page user 1, and let's see it over here. Page user is undefined on line 110. Okay, let's see what's the error. 110 is this line, const page user. Okay, so the mistake is we created the user, but we didn't return out our paid user, so we have to return the user as well to get that. Okay, let's see it. Yeah, now you can see that the account balance is increased. Name is Viviana, score is 8, and the account balance is increased, so it has got the additional functionality. But let's try to increase his score. So check if it has the general functionality as well or not. So I'm gonna do page user 1 dot I'm gonna like call the say-name function. I didn't define the increment function over there. I'm gonna call the say-name function over here. So let's say it got increased, it has the say-name function or not. So you see this has say-name, and now we know that the page user has this functionality because of the proto link that we defined over here, page user to page user functions, and then we link the page user functions to additional functionality, added this additional functionality over here. And then we're gonna do is check if the general user is our user one. Okay, we created that with the user one. User one is the user creator. We're gonna check if he got access to increase balance or not. Okay, so we're gonna check user one dot increase balance. So you see we got the error, the general user didn't get access to increase balance, and only the paid user has access to this increase balance. This is the unhood implementation of subclassing. In next lesson we're gonna touch it with the new keyword. Okay, touch it with the new keyword, how it works with the new keyword, and then we're gonna see how it is implemented with the classes as well. And that's it for this video. See you in the next video.